Welcome to this knowledge podcast for CIPS. Today we are going to be talking about category management in the NHS, and we're lucky enough to have secured some time with Zara Jones. So Zara, hello, if you can just introduce yourself to the listeners please, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Zara Jones. I have previously worked across both public and private sector. The role I'm going to be talking about today is my category buyer role within the NHS supply chain.
Thank you. So if you can tell us, Zara, please, how did category management fit into the role at the NHS, please?
So within the NHS supply chain, it's broken down very high level. So you've got surgical, non-surgical, consumables, facilities management. There is such a wide range of products and services that the NHS require. It would be impossible just to have it all under one area. I specifically sat within the food team. So within our food team, again, if you go to a supermarket, down the aisles, you've got a lot of different categories from frozen food, chilled food, ambient, you've got confectionery, you've even got clothing in there now. So many different categories, and to buy something and know your market, again, you're going to have to split those out. So we worked under a 3-tier category management model, where we looked at our individual category. So I was responsible for dairy, meat and poultry and fresh food. So those were my 3 categories. So I'd really need an understanding of the market. So we'd have a look at SWOT analysis, so the strengths, weaknesses. We'd have a look at threats and opportunities on the market to gain cost savings, better quality products. And we'd look at how we would then incorporate that into our purchasing strategy.
Fantastic, thank you. So as your role, like you say, you worked on the food side of things.
Yeah.
That for direct or indirect? What sort of category did that fall into?
So as a team, it fell into both indirect and direct. This one specifically was direct under my frameworks. We would facilitate the purchasing process, the whole procurement process really, and ultimately the goods would go directly from our supplier into the NHS at ward level.
Okay, understand. And did one procurement professional manage each category, or was there a multitude of people working on each category?
So essentially you would have one senior buyer that looked over the whole food team, and then an individual buyer for each category with an assistant buyer supporting the procurement process.
Okay. And in relation to those categories that you've spoken about within the NHS, how did you and your colleagues go about reporting on the spend of those categories?
So it was generally generated via Excel documents, because there was that many different stakeholders involved. They all had different reporting systems, and I think Excel is universal across any organisation.
Yeah.
So we obviously collated all the data from NHS trusts and suppliers. We looked at spend and rebates, etc. And usually pivoted those just to that was really to have a look whether it was fitting in budget, whether we were over budget, under budget, and just to really manage that spend.
Yeah, so your seniors within the NHS would set you a budget at the beginning of each year with regards to the category, and it was your responsibility to make sure you kept to that budget. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we had 2 main objectives really. And that because we was a third party framework to the NHS. Obviously, we wanted to generate additional business with different NHSs across the UK. So we wanted them to purchase using our framework. So we had to increase what was coming through. So that was something that we was looking at.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, public sector spend, main objective is cost savings, value for money. So then that was, we was then tasked with making them cost savings. So it was about looking at what their budget was and creating a percentage cost saving on their budget.
And did you have KPIs and SLAs related to budget savings at all? Was that something that you had to get involved in?
Yep, so there was strong KPIs set across the whole of the NHS supply chain as a contract for the Department of Health, and there was a large percentage which equated to millions.
Thank you. And lastly, Zara, with regards to category management, in your experience, what do you think are the main benefits of using a category management approach within procurement?
So, in my opinion, a buyer needs to know the market to be able to strategize and get a positive output. So, if you was just buying something tactical, you might not be getting value for money, you might not be getting the best quality, but you wouldn't really know that information because you don't know what the market has to offer. So I believe what category management gives you in the true sense is that understanding of what it is you are actually purchasing, what suppliers are on the market, and effects of things like the weather, any what's happening in the world of politics, legally, socially. So to give you an example, which is something that you may not think of, I've obviously mentioned that an area of mine is dairy products.
Yeah.
Butter is one of the fastest moving lines within an NHS. Every patient have 3 meals a day, and with every meal comes a butter portion, which is something no one ever thinks of. But yeah, so this is fastest moving line. So a lot of money gets spent on this particular item. So obviously you've got economies of scale to secure cost savings. If you look at how butter's made, it ultimately comes from a cow. So I was responsible for monitoring grass growth, because depending on how the grass is doing is depending on what nutrients the cow gets, which then has a knock-on effect on milk production, which then has a knock-on effect on butter production. And I think 2 or 3 years ago, we had quite a bad winter. There was a lot of snow, which reduced grass growth, which ultimately resulted in a reduction of 2% on milk production. So that increased butter portions. So you need to know about things like this so you can put them in the budget, you can manage any price increases, and it also gives you that knowledge that when a supplier is putting a price increase forward, you know the market, you know whether that is a legitimate price increase or whether that's just a profitability supplier increase. So then you have the power to either accept, reject, or negotiate.
Yeah, I understand. Interesting. And
Yeah.
I guess from what you're saying there, if you weren't a category manager, you maybe wouldn't have the time or the resource to drill down that deep into the supply chain and the tiers to understand all the effects that may affect your product that you're buying.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly that.
Fantastic. Well, that's great, Zara. Thank you very much for your time this morning, and thank
You're
you
welcome.
for your knowledge. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.